Just letting this switch over here. Going live. Hope everyone's doing great today. I am excited to be talking about a really important topic because oftentimes I hear from clients or potential clients that their team, or maybe just one or two team members, are not hitting their revenue goal month after month. And that is a really big problem. So I'm really excited today to be sharing with you how to really develop an action plan to train, support, and hold your team accountable to hitting their revenue goal. When some of the answers that I get from people when I ask them, what is it that you are doing for your team or for your individual providers that are not hitting their revenue goal, I hear a variety of answers. It could be, well, I don't even track it by individual is the first one. It's just we either hit it or don't hit it as a team. I also hear, well, I tell them how short they are with it. I tell them they need to sell more. I tell them that they need to create more appointments, or they're responsible for getting more patients on their schedule. But then it pretty much stops there. And the business owner or the manager is frustrated because they're not meeting their numbers. And so is the provider because they're making less money, right? Their commission or bonus is affected. They're twiddling their thumbs because they have an empty schedule, or you're just on their ass because they didn't meet their revenue goal, right? Nobody's happy when we're not hitting our revenue targets in our numbers. So I really want to give you some strategies that you can put into place to make sure that you are hitting your revenue goals month after month, not just 1 month here or there, but consistently. And breaking that down to the lowest common denominator to increase your chances of success. So BCI, thanks for joining us. Yesenia team, thanks for joining us. Hey, Belfazage, awesome to have you guys here live. All right, so let's jump into this. So the very first thing is you've got to know your numbers. Too oftentimes you're only looking at the big number, and that's really hard to figure out where it is that you can get better. Where's the easiest path to increasing your revenue? And so first off, you got to do it by provider. Then you got to do it by service category. And then you also have to be tracking your retail and your rebooking rates. So I love for each individual provider every single week to know what their numbers are. Last week, I was at a med spa and I had 2 different providers that are able to do the exact same services. And one provider's revenue per hour was upwards of $500, and another provider was only $200 an hour. And the med spa practice manager had no idea there was such a discrepancy, right? Because they're like, oh, they're both seeing the same number of patients. I just don't understand why. Well, at the end of the day, when we broke down the revenue by service category, we saw that one provider was only doing hydrofacials all day long. Where the other provider was doing, microneedling and laser hair removal and RF microneedling, right? And was selling skincare. And so all of a sudden it was very clear. It wasn't just like, oh, they're both working harder and we just need new patients, right? Everyone thinks, oh, if we just have more patients, and clients in the door scheduled will make our revenue target. And the reality is the path of least resistance is always doing more and doing better with what you already have. Of course, you want new patients, but today's topic is really focusing on doing better with what you have. And you got to first establish that baseline and knowing their numbers, right? So once you look at their service revenue that's coming in, you want to break that down by what treatments they percentage based on category, right? Lasers, injectables, facials, waxing, like really break that down so that you can look for trends like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you were doing hydrofacials all day. Those take so much longer. Those oftentimes patients don't convert into higher ticket treatment plans. Those patients often don't, invest in really extensive retail skincare products, and it's a high consumable. So by the time I pay your labor and your consumable, and like no one's making money off of that, right? So let's talk about some strategies of how we move patients away from treatments that, aren't making the provider or the med spa very much money, and focusing on treatments that are going to give them even better results and going to make the provider and the med spa more money. So unless they are being able to see that, like where their revenue is coming from, you would never have any idea, right? And then you look at the number of hours and it's like, wow, you're taking 75 minutes to do a hydrofacial, a basic hydrofacial, when it should only, be taking you 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Everyone's a little bit different that night, right? And then it's like, oh, well, I like to do X, Y, and Z. And then it was like, no, that's not the basic hydrofacial. So when you inspect your numbers, then all of a sudden you learn and uncover just the simplest little things that is going to be able to fine tune and make you more revenue, win you back more time. Another client I had was, doing a clear lift and blocking off 75 minutes for their clear lift appointment. And I was like, oh my gosh, like we're having trouble scheduling, getting people on the books less than 2 weeks out. And I see why right now, because you're taking 75 minutes to do a clear lift and turn the room over. And, you're only making a couple, like $300 at that. And you're not, transitioning them into a package or whatnot. So breaking these numbers down is going to tell a really big story. It's also going to give you an opportunity to think about your consumables and your labor, especially on injectables, right? And to be able to see, like, guys, when I'm looking at the ratios here and our profit margin, maybe what we need to do is increase our prices. Maybe what we need to do is decrease the appointment time slot. Maybe what we need to do is train our team on recommending and consulting different treatment options for our patients. But if you don't break down the numbers, you're not going to have the information you need to be able to guide your team. So the second thing is what's their retail that they are selling? And again, track it weekly, monthly, so you're able to look at their pacing, right? Because if you wait until the very end of the month, it's too late. There's no going back. Right now, it's just the new month. And you need to be able to make adjustments quickly. You need to be able to provide support and feedback and training quickly. So don't wait until the end of the month to do that. Oftentimes, it's just an extra $50 or $100, right? When you think about the volume of patients coming in the door, that is going to get you to your revenue goals. So when you really need to pay attention of just the little things, right? It's not about like, oh, you need to sell another all these extra or more $5,000 packages. Where are those little opportunities that don't take much effort, that don't require that much more of an investment from your clients, that when you add up is going to get you to your revenue goal? The last thing is your team rebooking their clients before they leave, right? At checkout. And this is one of those things where you want to be, stepping into the next week or even the next month, right? With your schedule filled up, not like, oh gosh, I'm relying 100% on marketing to all of a sudden fill up my schedule, right? Or like, oh, I really am going to have to work the phones and text and email and DMs to try to fill up that schedule. If you have a rebooking culture in your med spa, if you are tracking rebooking. I'm really proud of one of our clients in Texas. And they're even on this call watching right now. Hi, Brooke. I'm so proud of your guys' med spa because you have had massive growth since when I came to your med spa in Texas. And we really devised a plan to increase your rebooking rates, right? And when we first started tracking it, there were weeks where, and even months where you were at anywhere as low as 40%, right? Less than 50%. And now you guys, like a low rebooking week, I think is like 65 or 70%. And last week when you guys tracked your results, you were at over 80% of a rebooking rate. And that is massive because the easiest way to sell packages and high ticket treatment plans is to people that already know, like, and trust you, not to brand new patients, right? And so to really focus on rebooking is gold, right? So if you have empty spots on your schedule, track the rebooking rates. If the rebooking rate isn't at 80% or higher, then you have opportunity for growth. And to increase your rebooking rate, oftentimes it's as simple as fine-tuning your consultation and checkout process with your team. It really is that simple. So if that's something that you guys need help with, please reach out to your account manager, reach out to us, and we can give you some tips and tricks on increasing your rebooking rate. But you first want to start tracking it. And your goal is to get to 80% rebooking rate. Hi, Beauty Within. Thanks for joining us. And Live in Med Spa, thanks for joining us on Instagram. Stella, The Look, About Face, thank you for joining us today. Okay, so rebooking rates, selling retail, but really breaking down revenue per service category. Okay, because it's so telling. It's so telling. Every single time I'm having a conversation with a practice about their revenue, this is something that they're not paying attention to. And you really need to look at this. It's so telling wherein you have providers that are spending too much time, energy in the treatment room, in their consultations on treatments that are not benefiting them or really even benefiting the patient, right? That they're allowing the patient to dictate their treatment plan. And if you are not really paying attention to these things, everyone is going to suffer, right? So as the practice manager, as the business owner, you need to be paying attention to what those ratios are. And you need to be able to advise them of, like, listen, you're doing a lot of just microneedling. Why are we not looking at RF microneedling, right? You're going to make so much more in your bonus. The patient is going to get, an even better result. And when you look at the consumable, right, the consumable is the same cost, whether you're doing traditional microneedling or RF microneedling. So tell me, what's holding us back from doing more RF microneedling than just traditional microneedling? And oftentimes it's an excuse or a story that a provider is telling themselves, or they just don't feel confident in making the recommendation. So then that's when your job is to come in and to train them, give them the social proof, make sure that they have had the treatment themselves to see what, the great difference and results are, so that they build that confidence, right? Because if you tell them, like, your patient is going to be happier with the result, you're going to be happier with what your bonus looks like at the end of the month. So let's together come up with an action plan so that we can see you transitioning from recommending, Skin Pen to Morpheus or Vivace or whatever kind of RF microneedling device that you have. And let's break that down, right? What are the benefits? What are the patient testimonials or results or the social proof? And if you have another provider that's selling the heck out of your RF microneedling, partner them up, right? So that she can mentor her and share what her stories and her success, right? And it might be as simple as like, well, especially with younger laser technicians that have just been doing traditional microneedling themselves. Maybe it's as simple as allowing that laser tech to get through the series of 3 RF microneedling treatments herself so that she can share her own personal story, right? And all of a sudden, now that I've had the treatment, I'm so much more confident in making that recommendation. And it's like the simplest little things. But if I didn't uncover that you were lacking confidence in making that recommendation, if I didn't uncover that you didn't, understand the real benefit or difference between the two, if I didn't uncover that you hadn't even had the treatment before, as a manager or business owner, it's your responsibility to uncover those things of what's holding your team back from making the recommendations that they need to, rebooking their patients like they need to in order to meet their revenue goals. So don't be a leader that, why are you not meeting your goal? Why are you not meeting your goal? It's your responsibility as a leader to do everything you possibly can to set your team up for success. And that means really trying to uncover what is holding them back from being able to meet their revenue goal. Once you uncover that, devising a plan together to train them, to give them the confidence, to give them the resources that they need to be successful. And that oftentimes really is the disconnect, right? So do they need a mindset shift? Do they just need more at-bats? Do they need more opportunities? Do they need scripting, right? In the consultation room, in the checkout process? Oftentimes they just need the accountability of like, oh, I didn't know that I couldn't do other treatments besides hydrofacial. I didn't know that I was taking too long in my hydrofacial treatments. I was unsure of what other things I could recommend. It's like, it's always, you don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And so it's our job as leaders to uncover the challenges that's preventing them to meeting your revenue goal, and then providing the support in the training in order to achieve it. So is there any questions that I can take before we wrap up and end? While we're checking and waiting that, I just want to leave you with this. If you are an owner, if you are a practice manager, when there is a challenge or a lack of performance in your business, I think that it's really important to always first take responsibility for that happening in your business. It's your business, right? You're the leader. And really ask yourself, have I done everything possible to set them up for success so that they can meet their revenue goals, right? And oftentimes I see that there is an opportunity for leaders to get better in helping train their team and helping hold their team accountable in supporting them, because it's just a skill that they haven't developed yet. Instead of being like, they just every month don't make their goal, right? I have an A player and then I have the C team and I just don't know what to do with them. Well, I first ask you, what have you tried? Have you really set them up for success. All right. If you loved this training, make sure that you share it with your team or another med spa that could benefit. You can catch the replay on my YouTube channel, and to get access to free trainings that will help grow your med spa, be sure to visit my link tree in my social bio and join me live every Wednesday at 2:30 Central Time, same place, finding me on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks so much for joining me. And I'm going to continue on this topic, even just a little twist next week, because this is a really, really important one. This is going to help turn kind of your C team into A players, because this is trainable, guys. I promise you, this is a trainable skill. And oftentimes it's just uncovering the smallest little things that will make all the difference in the world. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you next week.